Good evening once again, Jeopardy fans, and welcome to Hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel presented by thejeopardyfan.com. Once again, I am Andy Saunders, and I will be hosting tonight's discussion. We've got two players from last week's games joining us this evening, so let's get straight to the introductions. First up, won 5 games, and over $100,000. Congratulations and welcome to Jon Eisenman.
Hi, thanks. Good to be here.
And our second panelist this evening, one of our challengers from Monday's game, almost beat Jon, but a good try, and welcome to Trevor Schultz.
Hello, thank you very much. Good to be here.
And as always, here on Hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel, if you've got questions or comments for the panel, you can always leave them on Twitter using the hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel. We've also got the YouTube chat, as always, so you can leave your questions or comments there as well. So, yeah. Well, first up, Jon, congratulations on your wins. That was, it's been a while since we've had some, few weeks at least since we've had someone win 5, so congratulations.
Breaking up a little bit there. Sorry, Andy.
Oh,
You're back now.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'll repeat the question. So congratulations on your 5 victories. It's been a while since we've had someone win 5.
Yeah, thanks. It felt good.
So my first question for you now, being from Los Angeles, had you been in studio before as an alternate, or was this your first time in?
Actually, the game that I played on the 30th was my day. I was there as an alternate and played in the last game that day.
Okay, so I guess that means you kind of won the draw then for the
Yeah. Yes.
and got to play. So. And then now, Trevor, was this your first time in the studio as well, and you had to go in cold?
It wasn't my first time in the studio ever. I took the college test there back in 1993. So, but obviously the studio had gone through many revisions since then. So, but it was my first time in there since then. Yeah, so I didn't know if I would be playing that day or when or in what order. Yeah.
It's very interesting now. So I guess, how does it feel then? You get introduced to, here's the champ. Oh, and by the way, Trevor, you're up first. You don't get to see anything. So what was that feeling like?
Well, I was kind of expecting it because me and another auditioner, we both commiserate about our different audition experiences, and it seemed like everything that had to do with the Jeopardy, either audition or what I envisioned for the show, it's like I knew I would get picked first. So in the audition I did in Phoenix in January, I was the very first person called up to do the mock game, and so I was just like, I know I'm going to be picked first. I absolutely know it, and lo and behold, I was, and I was not surprised. But the thing that did surprise me was that, given all the fussing that you do and all the practices and going up on the stage and coming off the stage and all the rules and everything like that, given all the fussing, that when you go up on the stage for the last time, I was expecting more of a build-up to when the show actually starts. And so when you go up for that very last time, they just say, look in that camera, and then all of a sudden lights go down, and I was like, oh, I guess it's starting right now. So that was the only surprise of the whole thing. But I was really expecting to be picked first, because I seem to always be picked first for these auditions and stuff like that. So obviously, Jon, you had the complete opposite experience. You got to sit a whole day in studio before you, and you're not even sure if you were going to get picked at all. So, while Trevor got 0 games in, Jon, how was it for you to see 4?
It's funny. It was a bit more nerve-wracking, I think, to watch during the day and think, if the level of competition stays like this, how is it going to be for me? Am I going to be fast enough on the buzzer? Things like that. The day went by a lot more quickly than I thought it would. I mean, when you think about how long you're in the studio, it just kind of raced by, and then suddenly I was chatting with the two people sitting in front of me in the audience with where the other contestants were. At that point, we'd been stripped down to me, the other alternate, and the people who were playing. And suddenly they just drew my name and said go, and so I went. And it was funny. It was actually a lot more relaxing, if that makes any sense, to be back up on stage and kind of tune out everything and just get into the flow of the game than it was to sit there and watch other people play.
Very interesting for sure. Yeah, that was an interesting take on that. Now, obviously, you got to come in and you were playing against. I believe it was Clint who had done really well in his first in his first game. How was it going up against that?
It didn't. The significance of the fact that I was playing against somebody who just won a game in front of me didn't really register. I just went and played. I mean, for me, when the game was going on, I was absorbed in it, and it was just a lot of fun. It was hard for me to register nerves. I mean, as my play progressed, I got to be more conscious of the gameplay, more conscious of this is now an ongoing enterprise for me. At the time, the first game, I just thought to myself, look, I'm getting to play a really awesome game on national TV. No matter what happens, I'm going to get some money out of today. This is great. So beyond that, it's all. I want to say it's gravy. It is gravy. I mean, the whole thing was just such a wonderful experience. It was hard for me to concentrate on, okay, this guy, Clint, just won. Am I going to be able to beat him? Am I going to move on? No, I was just playing, and I really liked it. I really liked it, and I guess I did pretty well at it. That's kind of how I came to this.
Nice. So obviously, now Trevor, you were in his second game and you were doing quite well. And can you kind of speak to how it felt, going up and just, almost, dominating the game in a lot of aspects, but, obviously you couldn't quite put it away. But how did it feel up there? Just, being able to almost like ring in as much as you were able to.
Well, the game started out pretty rough for me. You can hear me? You can still hear me?
Yep, I can still hear you. Yes.
Okay. You're looking around. I wasn't sure if you were looking. Okay. The game started out pretty rough because, like I said, I was very surprised at how quickly the initial game started, and also Jon was just really on fire to start. And I was ringing in on a couple of those early clues, but I was still just kind of out. I was still out to lunch to start. And then once the commercial break happened, then it was just nice to, I just finally found out how to like ring in and how to anticipate the lights around the board to ring in at the right time. And I just started hitting runs. And I guess what I was surprised the most about is that, I was very far behind after the first, going to the first commercial break, and I still felt behind the whole way, and I never looked at the score. So actually after the first round, when I looked up and I saw that I was actually leading, I was very surprised. And there was another part in the game where I looked up and I saw I had over 24,000, and I was very surprised with that too, because I just completely tuned out the score. And it's really hard, like when you're at home and you can pause the show and you can kind of talk to somebody who's around you and say, oh, I would do this and I would do that. You have no pause button in the studio. So there are things that I wish I could have done differently. I wish I would have bet more on the Daily Double. I wish I would have, rang in on the Ross Perot question and not rung in on the Prohibition question. And that might have created a lock game, all those different scenarios. So, yeah, it just Double Jeopardy was definitely where I felt like I was comfortable with the whole show.
Now, what's it like, Jon, as a champion when you've won a game, but the challenger is kind of having his way with the game on, up against you? What does that feel like?
I mean, it didn't feel good. Honestly, it gets frustrating. I mean, you start to, wonder, is it just your buzzer speed or you just not know enough of the responses? For me, my particular frustration, I guess a unique frustration in some sense, is that because I had a gap between my taping days, my family was actually able to fly out from the East Coast to be in the audience the taping day that started playing against Trevor. So part of me was a little bit worried that they would have flown out there just to watch me lose the game immediately first thing in the morning, and then it's kind of a wasted trip. I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't have looked at it as a wasted trip, but that was a bit of a concern. But again, I mean, I really tried to approach it with the attitude all along that, you know, this is getting paid to do something that's so much fun. I mean, it's really hard to put into words how much fun it was. And it's just a whirlwind. So, you know, as long as there's still game to play, I was going to keep playing it and not let myself get, you know, too frustrated, too worried, and agonized too much about the result. I just went to play and played as much as I could. Every game. That's the attitude I brought to it.
Now, I'm curious in your case, Trevor, because I would say that Monday's Final Jeopardy was not easy, and I would, you know, classify it a little bit on the difficult side. I know there were a number of feasible possible answers. I heard a few people who'd said from a few people who'd said Concord. I know I talked to a guy where I think the 747 was like his 10th guess. So from that perspective, what's kind of been the reaction to your Final Jeopardy within your group of friends or coworkers?
Most people were like, "Oh my God, no way." Even my hardcore trivia friends, the high level trivia friends, are like, "Yeah, that was that." Some of them said that was a downright terrible question. They said it was just not. I mean, I see it now. Like, if I had known the whole history of everything, it makes all sort of sense now. And I knew Air Force One wasn't really like. It just didn't feel like it was, you know, congruent with what they were exactly looking for. But it's just like, that was like my nightmare Final Jeopardy. It was both transportation and 20th century history, which are two of my weakest subjects. And but most of the people, I mean, most of the kind of the lay people, the people that would probably never try out for Jeopardy, said it was very, very hard for them. A few got it. But even like my high level trivia questions were like, man, for, you know, the game that you played throughout most of Jeopardy, and for the amount of Final Jeopardies that have been softballs in history, you know, that I was very unlucky to get the one I did for the situation that I was in. And just for the record, I had all 4 other Final Jeopardies for the week. So, and my roommate who's sitting right over there can attest, we just watched Friday's show and I said Laplanders, and he said Vikings. And I said, oh, that's a good guess, but I don't know if I'm right. And so I did get all 4 other Final Jeopardies. So it's just luck of the draw. And it was kind of devastating, really. So.
Now, what was your thought process on that Final Jeopardy, John, specifically on Monday? Did you have it right? Did you about how long did it take for it to come to you?
I mean, in a sense, by the time I wrote down the answer, I was about 80% confident in it. That was the first thing that came to mind. So if you're asking how long it took for it to come to mind, not that long. But was I ever 100% confident in it? No. Alex actually asked me if I knew or guessed. I told him I knew, and I knew, you know, I narrowed it down in my head to either the 747 or the Concorde. And I may actually be wrong about this, but my thought process then was the Concorde was flying between, I guess, Kennedy, London, and Kennedy and Charles de Gaulle. I may be wrong, but that was my thought process. So I thought, why would it be at Dulles? And then I just started to think about, you know, what model airplanes were coming into service then, and the 747 was just the answer. So that's where I went with it. So I would say it was an educated guess, even if the education behind it may have been wrong. I still actually haven't checked to see whether that's true. The service destinations for the Concorde, but once it was down to that, I just went with it. And again, as I said, because I was happy to be there and in it to play, it was the wager was obvious for me. It's like if I'm going to win, I'm going to win. If I'm going to walk out of here with just second or third place, fine. So be it. It was a lot of fun. I played a game I won once already, got some money. Let's go for it. And that's how it went.
Yeah.
So about how much studying did you guys get a chance to do before, in between getting the call and getting to tape?
I can start if you
Go
want.
ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, I've been playing, trivia in all sorts of ways, shapes, and forms for, like at least almost 30 years. So there was a good base of knowledge that I had. But I did notice that, I just been so kind of drowned in work for the last 9 months that I felt like my trivia skills had really slipped. So the main thing was to just get back into the habit of watching the show and standing up and using a buzzer. And I have this book. I dusted off some old trivia books that I had, and I was getting my roommate and another friend and anyone else I could just to start reading me things off these lists. It was just lists of books and, like classical works and composers, book titles and authors, and just to kind of keep going and keep my brain forcing it to, start answering questions over and over and over again. And I do have to say that on my games at home, I was so sluggish when I got the call. I got the call like in mid-February, and then I taped. We taped obviously March 28th, and so I was so sluggish. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna just die on the show." And that's the thing, is that the things I studied, a lot of those things actually came up in the episodes that I watched along the way, but nothing came up in my show. But the benefit was that my brain was so much more, so much more, responsive. Like, so you see that I have a lot of quick responses in the game, and that was from just basically drilling over and over again with anyone I could. Just read me stuff. And so that was the main practice that I did, was just lists.
Yeah, I didn't really study at all for the game, and maybe this was the wrong approach to take, but I figured that in the time I had between when I got the call, which was also, I think, sometime in February, and the time actually of the first game I played at the beginning of March, was it February to March? I didn't think that I'd be able to, in the time I had set aside, cram in something and then end up actually facing that in a game. Maybe I'm wrong to assume that. It may happen more frequently than I would imagine, but it seemed like I would be better devoting my time to just kind of tuning my brain to play. So I try to get more sleep than I ordinarily do, and eat a little bit better. I watched some more of the game. I just kind of tried to get into the mode of playing again. It'd been actually a while since I'd done any kind of trivia, so I went out and played some bar trivia then or not. But for me, it was more about just getting in the mode to compete rather than trying to put more knowledge in my head. It reminded me in some ways, I talked to somebody actually the first taping day I was there who was talking about the amount of studying he'd done to prepare for it. And he said it actually benefited him in terms of subject matter that he saw in the game. But my feeling was just, it reminded me of people that I saw when I was taking the bar exam, cramming for the bar exam during the bar exam, like at lunchtime. And, the odds that you'll face a question that you studied for in that amount of time seem to me not to make it worth trying to cram the subject matter in. Maybe, like I said, maybe it is. I may be completely wrong about that. I know a lot of people have looked at this. They have methodologies for studying for it, but I didn't. Maybe I would have been better served had I done that, but it worked out.
Mm-hmm. Now, while you guys were talking there, I did actually decide to look up some information on the Concorde. And actually, I had said the Concorde myself when playing that final. And I was only about 30% sure, because I knew in the back of my head that the Concorde didn't enter service until 76, at least to the U.S. And what had happened, the first flights into the U.S. were actually to Dulles.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, I mean, had I actually known that, I would have hurt myself. So in some ways, it was luck.
I wish you had known that. I wish you had known that, John.
Sorry.
It didn't actually start going into JFK until 77, because New York was still hesitant about the possibility of sonic booms, and therefore they had actually banned the Concorde locally until 77.
That's funny. Good luck, I guess.
Well, sometimes you just you have just enough of a feeling to talk yourself out of a wrong answer. So
yeah.
So do you guys remember what Alex talked to you about post game? Trevor, for your one game, John, for any of your games?
I mean, I can tell you the first game I remember. We talked very briefly. I think I may have mentioned the show on Amazon, Man in the High Castle, because actually I just watched the new season of it. And so rather than thinking of The Sound of Music when someone says to me Edelweiss, I think of the theme music to that. Kind of, I don't know if you've seen it, the sort of haunting rendition of it at the beginning of the show. So I may have asked that. I don't remember what his response was. And then I remember the last, maybe it was the last game I played him asking if any of my family was there, and I pointed them out in the crowd. But otherwise, conversation, chit chat. I really don't remember the details.
In my game, the first thing he said was to Emily, I believe that's her name, Emily, that he said, man, the guys really got you on the buzzer. And she said, yeah, it was tough. And then and then I remember John kept leaning over to me to say, you're really fast. And Emily said something similar. So I mean, that was a nice little consolation, to be recognized by your opponents as.
Well, it's true. You were really fast.
Well, thank you. Yeah. It was, and then I just, I don't remember. Alex was just talking about something else, and then I started just some half-hearted thing. I was like, I just don't know my transportation history, and I don't know, just kind of fizzled out. And then Alex just sort of looked at us and kind of nodded and back and forth, and he said, okay, well, I guess that's it. So it was kind of, I don't know, I don't know if it was the most spirited conversation. It was just kind of, all right, we're done.
Yep. So we've got a couple of questions here on the hashtag Jeopardy Live panel. The first one, it's from, actually both of these are from Michael Parisi, and the first one's for John. I'd like to know if John has been getting a hard time from fans for such low wagers on the daily doubles.
Yes. Short answer, yes. I had some time since I played to think about the way I treated the game from a more strategic perspective. If I had it to do again, I may have wagered differently sometimes, but I came to it with, I guess it's a bit of an aphorism I heard a lawyer use once in court. The guy was making a motion for his attorney fees, and you have to demonstrate to the judge typically that the fees you're asking for are reasonable. And a lot of the times judges go into that with a red pen and just kind of hack away at the fees you put on the form and deduct. But this time the judge said, I don't see that much to take off here. You've only asked for very reasonable things. And the attorney said, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. So my attitude in some ways was just to grind away at the game. I realize now, edged me in some points, especially in the last game I played. I mean, again, hindsight 2020 there, but I was coming to it from the attitude that I could wager conservatively, try to pick up a lot of answers just in the normal course of the game, and power through that way. Again, best strategy. I think it has its faults, but yes, people were annoyed about the low wagers. I will say, I took to heart criticism that it's a bad strategy, and I'm still thinking about that criticism. There are genuine criticisms, informed criticisms you can make of the game. What I don't care that much about are criticisms that you should wager more. I mean, yeah, I get it. It's entertainment. People like to watch, but for me playing, I'd like to win. So if I'm not entertaining, sorry, but I'd rather grind through, pull out a win, even if it's not a huge high dollar win, and move on and keep playing the game. So that's my perspective on it.
And I know from my perspective watching, it seemed like as I was watching you miss daily double after daily double, it started to make sense to me that, clearly he knows he doesn't know a lot. And therefore, it's a good idea to bet small on the daily doubles when you're struggling with them. So,
yeah, I mean, I guess that's one way to look at it. I did miss, especially at the beginning of my run, missed a few of them, and it's, I didn't want to get hit with that. I will say one that kind of stuck in the craw was a Tennessee Valley Authority one, because, and you could get into how you want to describe an agency or a government corporate entity. I would call that entity the authority, but when the phrasing was a project, that led me to change my response to say project and lose that daily double. Likewise, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, in the first game, Loki, I was thinking about, I got Loki immediately, that was the Norse god that they were talking about, but my brain didn't disaggregate that into the words low and key. So I was looking for another word to go with it. So it's, yeah, I mean, I guess you could say I know what I don't know, and I'm not willing to piss away money necessarily when I could keep playing the game and maybe pick up something later on.
Yeah. So, and I mean, you can speak to your daily double strategy a little bit as well. I know you wagered more than 50% of your score when you did have the opportunity there, Trevor. So if you want to talk to that a little bit.
So, well, yeah, I know everyone before the show was, encouraging me to study up on wagering strategies, and I focused more on Final Jeopardy wagering strategies, and we were really drilling that. So with daily double strategies, I think I kind of knee-jerked it when Alex said you're in the lead for 4,000. I think that just triggered an automatic response to bet 4,000. I think if he had said you're in the lead, you have a lead, just not mentioning a number, I might have bet something different, because I think that you're also trying to minimize static to keep your brain on task. And so I thought, well, just without hitting a daily double yet, I'm in the lead, almost doubling his score, and 4,000 seems like a reasonable wager. I think when I've reflected on it, like a literature category would be a strong category for me, under other circumstances. If I, had the guts, I would have tried to maybe make it a true daily double, or at least the other contingency was, and I thought about this later, is like bet just enough so that if you miss it, you still have just over half of your next highest player if you're in the lead. And that would have been like a $6,600 bet, which would have actually given me the win. It would have given me exactly enough. So, but yeah, I think really in reality, I just knee jerked it. He said, you're in the lead by 4,000. I'm like, okay, let's make it 4,000. It was just kind of instant, so I didn't really.
You may find this interesting if you actually go back onto the Jeopardy fan from earlier, a few months ago, or actually quite early on in this season. There was a paper that came out from Jay Walker and Michael Jeter, speaking about the concept in economics called anchoring. And I know that that certainly, Alex saying you've got to lead by 4,000, and then you saying, well, I'm going to bet 4,000. That is a classic case of anchoring when it comes to, and I mean, these, it's certainly something that I would say completely exists and is, it makes perfect sense to me that why you chose that number. So. Yeah.
I mean, all I needed just was, a little bit more gas at the end and it would have happened. So, I mean, I guess 4,000 wasn't, 4,000 got me on the way. It just didn't get me all the way there. So,
and it's certainly very difficult to realize that, or at least, come up with that when you're you're on clue 6 and who knew you would need an extra,
extra bit. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
There's still so much game left. Yeah. So go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
One other thing that I don't think you realize until you're on the show is that when you look up and you've already played, you got up at 6 a.m. You've already, done the studio. You've already done 3.5 hours of prep in the studio, and you've already done over half the game. And you look up and you see your score as $9,400. You realize there's so much, like, you're less willing to risk that than when you're sitting at home on the couch. Like $9,400 felt like a lot of work to me, like a lot of struggle. And so sometimes at home, I would say, oh, I'll risk it all. It's literature. I know this. And, but in that moment, I was like, wow, $9,400. I worked really hard for that. And so I'm really I'm a lot less willing to like lose it all if I get it wrong. So.
So the next question on the hashtag, also from Michael. But what stories would you tell Trevor what other stories would Trevor have told if he got to come back again?
I've been going through those in my mind, because in your dream, I think everyone dreams about having like a multi-day run like Jon did. And so one of the things that I would have done is I learned rather recently kind of a true connection that I have to a celebrity, and that is that my grandfather, when he was widowed, he married the grandmother of Broadway star Carla DeVito, who she's been in Broadway, she's been in music videos, she was associated with Meatloaf, and she's married to Robbie Benson, who is the voice of Beast in Beauty and the Beast. And I thought, oh, if I'd won a few games, I would have maybe told that story on air, and then looked her up on Twitter and say, hey, watch the show, I'm talking about you. We were related by marriage at one point. And I still could, find her. I just haven't done it because I was kind of, I was losing was not, I just kind of like depressed the situation a bit. So that was one. And, and the one of the staffers in my audition, she kind of kept asking me questions about how much I like Vegas. I'm kind of a Vegas fan. So she asked me what games, what games I like. And I'd probably talk about my Vegas experiences a little bit. And I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. Yeah, I mean, but those are those are two of them. So.
Now, in your case, Jon, being on story number 6, I feel as though it might have been difficult for you to come up with 5 more for the following day had you needed them.
It would have been very difficult for me to come up with 5 more for the following day had I needed them. I would have had to go home that night and really think about what I wanted to give them. I mean, even coming up with the 5 I used, I didn't think I was going to, I did not anticipate playing that many games of this show. So it was, it got to be a challenge. I think they worked out all right, but yeah, it's hard to come up with little tidbits about yourself that, one, you might want to share with the world, that you would think would be interesting enough for the producers to want to feed to Alex. And also that, this kind of ties back to the first thing. You wouldn't be ashamed to share with the world. I guess maybe my bar for shame has now been set very low, but it's not easy to do.
Okay, so how, other than, having to come up with 5 stories, how difficult is it to go through and play 5 games of Jeopardy all at once?
I didn't feel really drained until it was over. When it ended and time to walk out of the studio, and I walked out of there, it really hit me. But during the gameplay, I think there's a lot of adrenaline going on. I certainly caffeined up at lunch. It didn't feel draining. Maybe if I'd had to come back and play another day, if I didn't get a good night's rest, let's say, in between, I would have felt drained when I started. But I was riding adrenaline, it feels like, the whole way through.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fair. Now, you mentioned caffeining up at lunch. Was there anything else that you managed to have for lunch on Sony's dime at the commissary?
Yeah, what did I have that day? I may have had a turkey burger. I think I did have a turkey burger that day. Turkey burger, cherry Coke Zero was where I went for caffeine. Yeah, I filled up. What can I say? Oh, I did make sure in the morning there, snacks in the green room, to try and get at least 1 banana. I wanted the potassium. Maybe complete nonsense that I could actually make a difference that quickly, but for the nerves,
Makes sense. Makes sense. Now, Trevor, what else did you do when you went out to Culver City to tape?
Well, we tried to make a whole trip out of it. So we started out actually, the hotel was kind of pricey. So we were trying to minimize our costs, figure out the best way. The drive from Phoenix to LA or Culver City was about 5 hours and change. And we could have easily done it in one day. But we kind of wanted to do something else. So we actually went down to Rincon near San Diego, and there's some casino properties there. And I actually had a free night there. So on the Sunday night, we went down there, which got us close to LA so that we wouldn't have such a long drive the day before taping. So that was, and there was like a water park there. So we, did some drinks and went to the water park and just kind of said, okay, this is now vacation. Try to get myself, relaxed. And then we drove into LA, and so we just chilled out the hotel that night, just at a restaurant locally, and I just tried to calm down. And then after it was all done, I was planning on, hoping I could win at least one game, and so that I would just stay at the hotel that next night as well. But since I was done so early, I stayed to watch the next two games, and then at the lunch break, we went back and we asked the hotel if they would let us out of that night, and they did. And a friend of mine he works for a theater in Costa Mesa, and they had a production of Finding Neverland there, and he was able to get us deeply discounted tickets. And so it was a wonderful show, but I have to admit, it was just it would have been so much better if I could have sat in the chair and been like, hey, I'm a Jeopardy champion, and I have all this money coming to me, and because the show is really energetic and had this kind of triumphant end, and I was just like, I'm really trying to enjoy this. I'm really trying, because I've definitely took the loss very hard. And and then that night, there's another friend that lived in the Inland Empire, and she put us up, and then we stayed for a few days. We hung out with friends, and another friend works at Universal Studios, and he got us free tickets into there.
Nice.
And we also got. Do you think I should tell the story? Or that would probably be okay. Well, he was our friend is a celebrity. Our friend has a friend who is a celebrity who's on a current hit TV show, and we were talking with our friend about the show that we liked, and we're like, "Do you watch this show?" And he said, "Do I watch the show? Well, my friend is on it. I'm personal friends with so and so. We can't say the name, but I'm personal friends with so and so." And while we were not looking, our friend got the celebrity friend to tape us a message to say, thanks for watching the show and everything like that. It was a 90-second message from a TV celebrity. And that was like another little silver lining to our trip, is that we got a personalized message from a TV celebrity. So, but they said, you can't tell us, you can't say who it is, because even that celebrity doesn't do enough taped messages for his own family, for the own family's friends. So if he got caught doing it for us, he'd get trouble. So we just but it was really cool. We were geeking out over it because we love the show that person is on.
That's a great story for sure. So I'm going to, there's another question here on the hashtag from Michael. I'm going to take it a little bit out of the specific and a little bit more into the general, because I'm not quite sure we've discussed this a lot here on Live Panel. But what recourse is there if a contestant feels that they have been the recipient of a bad call by the judging panel?
I personally don't know. I think that maybe they're referring to my prohibitionist versus prohibition answer. I don't know if but that would be one example of what I'm thinking there might be some controversy, but I really don't know. I don't know how that works. I know that Who Wants to Be a Millionaire often brought back people because there was a lot of ambiguous answers to questions. And I personally know some of the people that got brought back and won $1 million. as far as me, I really don't know because I didn't really broach the topic. I don't even know how that would work, but but as far as the prohibitionist one, so far I have not found a way to I haven't found an angle to fight that. Because being in the prohibition party is called the Prohibition Party, and a prohibitionist doesn't necessarily, I guess, make you part of the party. So, but I don't know. I don't know if I had a case. If I thought I had a case, I would know more about that topic. But I don't know if John knows anything more about that. Or...
I mean, this is just my recollection from the kind of getting hit with twice the long orientation at the beginning. There is a compliance lawyer there. You can, at a break, raise it with the judges. I don't know what they would do in the sense, for example, if it was the final Jeopardy question, what they would do then. I don't know if you raise it and they say no, sorry, what recourse you have after that. It seems to me that there's, once the show is over and in the can, really, what are you going to do about it? I can't imagine that there's really, now I'm speaking sort of, we'll put on like a quasi lawyer hat. I'm not speaking as a lawyer, but it's ingrained in there. I'm not sure what you could do about it after the show is over and done with. I mean, I think the sole recourse would be at a break, flagging one of the producers over and saying, I think you made a mistake there. You could get the compliance lawyer involved that's on set, but I don't know what else you would do beyond that.
Well, I also think a lot of it has to do with the fact that if it, I think that they'd be much more willing to look at things if it actually, if holding, again, ceteris paribus, the economics concept, holding everything else constant, if that specific mistake actually affected the outcome of the game, like had switching that turned it into a runaway sort of deal, or affected who was leading, for example, going into Final Jeopardy, that might have that might be seen as or at least more likely to have someone be brought back than it cost you $1,600 but the situation didn't change.
I'm only speculating if I spoke to that. I don't know, if there's any precedent for them bringing people back because of that kind of thing. I have no idea.
Right. Yeah. On Jeopardy, yeah, I don't know of anything, but I mean, Millionaire, it happened a lot. What's funny is how your memory changes, because I thought that question, I did think that prohibition question was worth $1,200. I thought it was in the $1,200 slot. And then, so when I was replaying it back in my head, and I was like, oh, if I had just said prohibition, I would have had a runaway. I would have had just enough for the lock. And then I watched back and I'm like, oh, that was the $800 clue? Oh, okay. I totally forgot that. And there were so many things that so many things where I thought.
Mm-hmm. Can you guys hear me?
I can still hear you.
Okay. I think Trevor's audio cut out on him in the middle of his conversation there.
I think so too. Because I don't hear him or see him anymore.
Okay. Well, when Trevor returns, I'll get him to finish that answer. In the meantime, can I get your thoughts on the last Final Jeopardy you faced, the one about
order and what was actually worth
We had him for a second.
We had him for a second, but let's see what. Okay. While we're waiting to get Trevor back, can I get your thoughts, John, on the very last Final Jeopardy you faced, the one about that ended up being the Sami people?
Yeah. I should have known that. On the basis of, I guess this is sort of random. I don't know if you know the author, Joe Nesbo. He's a Norwegian guy. He wrote a series of kind of thriller mystery books about a Norwegian detective who is half Sami. And one of them, the Norwegian ambassador to Thailand, is murdered with a Thai knife that's greased in reindeer fat, which he then realizes is a Sami way of cleaning a knife. So these are things that then popped into my head afterwards. Geez, I should have known this. But in the moment, I thought about a friend of mine who spent a lot of time in Scandinavia, and particularly in Finland, and that's how I kind of went down this rabbit hole of things that really were not at all the correct answer. So it was rough, but it happens. I see Trevor's back if you want him to finish his answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last thing I heard out of you, Trevor, was you're surprised that there was an $800 clue, another $1,200 clue, and then your audio cut out.
Oh, okay. So what I finished saying was that I thought it had made the difference, and that was the reality that I thought I was living with since March 28th, was that, that one thing prevented the lock, and when in reality it didn't. So, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I went on to say, I misremembered so many different things in the game, like where things were in order, what was worth what, even which category was in single versus double Jeopardy. Like, so it's just because it's a lot of data points in one game, and
Yep.
It's hard for your mind to keep 61 data points all in the row and everything that ever happened, So.
Yeah, that's certainly a something that you're not the first person to have experienced that, I'm sure. So
Right.
So my next question for both of you, how different is it watching Jeopardy now that you've actually been a contestant on the show and seen episodes taped from the audience and actually been on set?
Go first, John.
Sure. In some senses, it's weird. I'm weirdly divorced from the experience of watching it and the experience of having played it. I seem kind of divorced in my head. Even when I was watching myself play it, it felt like a completely different thing. I don't know if I can explain it. Like so many things, I've found things on TV seem a lot grander than they seem when you're there. So especially if you watch like an athletic event, I often find like a baseball field looks huge on TV, and then you're sitting and watching the game, and geez, it's compact. It fits in this park. We're all sitting around and watching it. And in some ways, being in the studio felt that way for Jeopardy. I think on TV it seems the stage, everything seems a bit more expansive than it does when you're actually standing there. But yeah, as I said, it's strange. It's just strangely the experience of playing and watching are divorced in my mind. I don't know if they'll ever get reconciled, and it'll be like, oh, geez, this is me doing it. But yeah, it's hard to explain. Impossible. I can't explain it.
As for me, I didn't pick up on all the edits before, because now that when you tape the show or when you see a show, you realize how many times the game is stopped for just about anything. And in my case, there was, actually the whole Prohibition saga, that the answering that question, the game was actually stopped twice for that. And certain comments Alex made, he made certain comments at the time, and then he made certain comments right before Final Jeopardy. And those were cobbled together to appear in the game at the start, or right after the question happened. And so now when I watch the show, I can see like when something just looks like it's clipped, a little bit clipped, or when there's a slightly strange edit, I can totally tell, okay, well, a lot of stuff was said, they just cut it out. Somebody's, there was a reaction maybe from a contestant, they probably cut that out. So now I see all the edits and see them all before, but now I see them.
It's funny, on that note, I was hoping for an edit. In one game, I got the Daily Double. The clue came up, and I was just kind of standing there stupidly staring at the thing. My brain just shut off. I mean, I knew the answer. I was still trying to buzz in for a question. And I thought, okay, I'm just a complete brain fart. There's dead air there. They're totally going to edit that. And they did not edit that. So whatever. What can you do?
Yeah, where Alex is like, you don't have to ring in.
Yeah, I thought for sure that was going to get cut out of there. There it was. It's still there, preserved in the ether now, I suppose.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually surprised, to be honest, after there was one contestant a few months back who, again, rang in very demonstratively on his Daily Double. And the internet really ran with that. And I'm surprised they didn't I'm a little bit surprised they didn't choose to pick on you for that, because they certainly picked on you on a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, it's fine. They can pick on me for whatever they want. My attitude again was I had a lot of fun. It was a great game to play. If people want to armchair quarterback it, that's their prerogative. If they want to mock me for it, that's their prerogative too. Not going to bring me down.
That's actually a good attitude to have over that, for sure. So nice.
Yeah. I got nasty emails from someone at my work email, which that I thought was a little bit overboard, but whatever. I printed them out and stuck them on my office door. So you can't take it too seriously.
What was the general content of the work email? That does seem overboard.
I'll read it to you. On my door. You guys can't see me. Maybe you can still hear me. It says, subject line, "So very glad." And then it proceeds, "Your reign as Jeopardy champ ended. You are an insufferable bore."
Wow.
Yes. So, if somebody wants to do that, they feel free to do it. Like I said, it doesn't really bring me down. It's to me kind of funny, and I'm sure to everybody who passes my door in the hallway also kind of funny. That's it's not the strangest thing that happened. Somebody actually called my office line too, which was also kind of disconcerting. Not to say anything threatening, but it was just weird. It seems a little out of bounds, but generally the criticism, that's fine. It comes with the territory, I guess. You put yourself out there, you become a target.
Right.
But I've gotten, I will say, by orders of magnitude more supportive messages than I have criticism from people, and so maybe it's a way to feel good about the nature of the world that not everybody's out to just throw mud all the time.
I feel as though this is something. I hope that you're mostly alone in having received stuff like this. I would also agree that it's kind of out of bounds to start, contacting people that way to, unannounced, and to try to completely trash them for what they've decided to do. And
yeah, it was one thing on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. That's the nature of social media, and I'll dish it out as well as I'll take it on Twitter. Although I tried to be friendly in terms of any snark or trolling I was doing to people there. But yeah, when you're calling someone especially at work, although I suppose that they found me at home, it would have been even more disturbing. But I have a job, I have a life. Although it was a hard life to live last week, just a lot of stuff going on, and people that felt the need to interject their opinions, like the one on my door, into that. It is out of bounds. But what can you do? It'll probably die down now. I'm assuming.
I'm guessing so, but even still, I think it's out of bounds. Certainly to absolutely 100% out of bounds to phone a contestant unannounced for something like that, and it kind of makes me sad to see or to hear stories like that.
Well, I will say, at least the people who phoned, it was like 10 o'clock at night. I was at work trying to make up for being distracted during the day, kind of following what was going on with the game. And my direct line at my desk rang. During the day, that would have to go through a receptionist. But, at night, there's like an answering service with a directory. And I guess they just got the directory and used it to dial through to my desk. And it was just these college students. I don't know really what they wanted to say. I think they were surprised that I was actually still here, and they hung up pretty quickly. But it's a bit strange.
Secret fan club. You have secret fans all over. They're just
I guess so. Secret fans, and not so secret detractors, I guess. But
so, from another comment here on the hashtag from Michael, both great players, no doubt, but it's a shame that an amazing brain like Trevor gets that one and only shot.
It is a shame.
But, two people lose every episode, so.
Yeah. I heard that a lot, both before and after, I heard all the platitudes, and so, So it's still, but it's still, still kind of hard. But it was better once I saw the edit, and and people. I guess it would have been one thing if I just thrown up a clunker, and I was never in it at all, and But I mean, so I guess if I had to lose, I guess I'm glad I lost. Playing, being pretty prolific during the regular game. So, but gosh, you do hear all the same things. Two people have to lose, and it's only a game, or it's just a game show, and this and that. And sometimes it's, you're like, well, but this is my life too. So.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it for sure. So, do you guys have any questions for each other, or even for me, that I haven't asked, or anything that you think I thought I'd bring up?
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Oh, please go ahead, Trevor.
Oh, okay. Well, so I was unclear when I was there about the lunch situation for the people that lost to begin with, but so did you actually eat in the green room, or did you actually get to go to the commissary? But were you supervised, or how did that work? How did the whole lunch thing work?
So it's in the commissary. There are 2 or 3 tables kind of off to the side that have reserved for Jeopardy contestant signs on them. You get a voucher. I think it was like $12 or $14. You go in there in a group with Glenn. Maggie was there too, I think, one of the 2 days I was there. And they just kind of tell you, all right, here's how this works. Here's how much your voucher is worth. If you go over the voucher value, let us know. And I guess they'll pick up the difference. I don't know. I didn't do it. And yeah, you just go sit with the other contestants at the table, eat lunch, and then back to taping.
Okay, but you couldn't really, they didn't want you to have any contact with anyone else, right? Just the contestants and the producers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody really said anything to me about not talking to other people. It just didn't happen that there were really other people. There were other people around, but it didn't occur to me to talk to any of them, I guess.
Okay.
If there was some advice about not talking to them, I didn't hear it, but I didn't do it anyway. I mean, The way it ended up working, it's a busy lunchroom. I guess you could stop and talk to someone, what you would say to them or what they would say to you. I don't know, or what difference it could make in the game. I'm also not sure. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of get your food, go sit down, and it's the other contestants there and the producers. So in that space, in the commissary, there aren't really other people close by. So talking to.
But it wasn't a scenario where if your family tried to follow you to the commissary,
I don't know if they could have. My family, I didn't see them. I saw them in the audience. It breaks in the taping, kind of like if I looked up there. But I didn't see them again until after. Actually, I don't think I even saw them on the lot after it was over, because I think they got shooed out before I got out of there.
Okay.
So we met up later, but I didn't. No, I did get back. I did see them outside, but I didn't talk to them or see them otherwise during the day at all. And I don't know that they would have been able to loiter around and follow us in there. I will say this, the kind of trip from the studio to the commissary was supervised and as a group. I guess if someone very visibly walked out of the studio and followed us in there and tried to talk to us, maybe it would have raised an alarm, but I don't remember being advised about that. And it didn't occur to me that it might be a problem. I guess I could see how it would be, but.
Okay. And by the way, my group was actually sitting behind your family. So when I went up to go join my group after the game, somebody in my group was actually talking to your mom, or your mom was identified as. And so I kind of had this weird thing where I said, congratulations on your son winning the game. And your mom kind of actually I think she acknowledged it, but then for a little while she was actually kind of staring at me, but I don't know why. She was just sort of staring at me, and then I would kind of looked away, and I looked back, and she was still staring at me, and I'm not really sure. I was just kind of I don't know if she was gearing up to say something, but she never did, and I don't know. It was kind of interesting. So I thought
I don't know. She's actually my stepmom, so maybe that was.
Okay.
She might have been a bit, because she has a son, so maybe there was some. When you said congratulations on your son, maybe I don't know if that triggered something, but she didn't say anything to me about it, so I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Sorry. I'm sorry she weirded you out.
No, well, it just was kind of odd, because I was she looked like she was about to say something multiple times, and I'm like, okay, and then she never did, and so I was like, okay, whatever. So,
It's possible she couldn't think. Maybe she wanted to say something but couldn't think of something to say, under the circumstances.
yeah,
But I don't really know. She didn't
sure.
say anything to me about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have one for you, Andy. How long have you been doing this? I mean, to me, like, I've watched Jeopardy, but I'm now finding myself kind of embroiled in, people that really, really this whole culture, and it's cool. I'm just wondering how long you've been
How
doing
long have I been doing? This is actually season 3 of Jeopardy Live Panel, so we're actually nearing the 3-year anniversary of our first episode with this. I've been part of the Jeopardy fan for even longer than that, and done a lot of work with J-Archive as well. So, I mean, I've been around the community for a long time. Haven't been on the show, but auditioned a few times. Have yet to receive the call, but yeah, it's quite a community.
I was going to say that, and also that it's a really great resource. I want to thank you for doing it. And their work on the website. Getting into it now, it's been really beneficial for me and helpful for me, and I could see it's a good resource. So thank you again.
You're quite welcome. So, are there any other questions?
Well, I was curious to know, to being so integrated into the fan community will be a barrier for finally getting on the show, or do you think? As far as like maybe why you haven't gotten on the show yet, but you're so well versed in Jeopardy. I would think producers would love that, because they wouldn't need any special handling of you. You would just know what to do from start to finish. So I think that would be a huge asset. But do you think that maybe being too close to the Jeopardy fandom could be a barrier, or what do you think?
I honestly, from what I've seen, I honestly don't think that, the reason why I haven't gotten on the show is I think because my auditions haven't been very good. I think that's my best guess. Knowing what, looking back on how my auditions have been, I can see why I haven't been called. So from that perspective, I think that's kind of where I lie. I feel as though that if my auditions were better, then I think I probably would have received a call at some point. But I don't think that me doing this, or me being as close as I am, or as well versed as I am, is inherently disqualifying. So to answer that question.
Okay. I do have another question for Jon. Being an attorney, I don't know if you know more about the sort of legal or legalities involved with being on one game show and signing the contract that says you can't be on another game show or reality show or anything like that for a certain period of time. I've talked to some other people who are involved with law, and they said those contracts can be overridden if all parties agree. Do you know anything more about that? Because I was interested in getting on another game show, and I would have maybe applied for this other game show had Jeopardy not called. And I was just wondering, this other game show, I potentially have a very compelling angle where the producers would say, hey, yes, we really want you on because of the person I would be auditioning with. So it's a long story. So I was just wondering, do you know anything more about that, overcoming those contracts?
So I have to preface this with the fact that I'm not giving legal advice. I'm just now thinking aloud.
Sure.
Because I really cannot give legal advice about this. I'm not an expert on it, and I just cannot give legal advice anyway without the whole rigmarole of retainer agreements, blah, 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 blah. But I'll say generally, if there are parties to contracts and everyone agrees that some term, can be altered, or you want to alter it and everyone agrees to do it, there's generally not a problem. I don't remember the details of all the Jeopardy paperwork. I'm assuming there's probably a no waiver provision in there somewhere that they can't by failing to enforce something, waive their right to enforce it. But if, let's say, the contract says you can't be on another game show for X period of time. The other game show says we want you on, and you go to Jeopardy and say, I want to be on the other game show. If everyone agrees that you should be on the other game show, then I don't think you're going to run into a problem. But that's speaking very generally, not as an expert on these agreements and not giving legal advice.
Okay, yeah. That's what. Okay. Good. That works. So.
Yeah. So, as I said, I don't remember the details of the agreements, which is bad. I mean, I read them before I signed them. Obviously, I know enough to do that from doing my job every day. But most of the stuff, I mean, I personally am not planning on being another game show. So just keep my head down and power through this.
Oh, and then I have another question for both of you, because it looked like from last I saw, Jon, you moved up pretty well on the Tournament of Champions leaderboard, because there were a few at the bottom that were 4 wins, so you moved up above all them. But before the actual broadcast went live, you both, Andy and Jon, were talking about the chances of Jon getting into the TOC, and that there was some ambiguity there. And I just wondered if you wanted to talk about that, because I was curious.
Well, we obviously don't know when the cutoff is going to be. That's certainly not. I make projections based on what I think, and I could certainly be completely off base with that. Obviously, the tournament is set by the producers, and they invite whoever they'd like. They generally use their, obviously number of wins and, total money won. But certainly, it's their prerogative as to where they set that cutoff. And for all I know, that cutoff might have happened already. For all I know, it could still come in the future. So,
okay.
I mean, just for me, I tend to be a bit cautious and conservative about things. I don't want to assume that it's a done deal. So we were just discussing it in that sense. People have been congratulating me on that already, and I'm not counting those chickens. I will be grateful for the opportunity if I get in. If I don't, good luck to whoever else manages to. I mean, I suppose it's possible that someone could have 2 people could have streaks longer than mine, or I guess the same length and more money would displace me as well. It seems possible, so I don't know how likely it is, but as long as the possibility is there, I'm not gonna count my chickens.
If you do make it, do you know enough about the other people on the list? Say like Seth Wilson and the college, some of the college players and some of the higher level people, Buzzy Cohen and stuff. Like, do you?
I know a bit about Buzzy. I know some things about some of the others. If I make it, I'll do research on them for sure. And I also intend to spend some time really thinking about my wagering strategies and really how I'd want to play that game.
Sure.
At this point, having that opportunity, I mean, again, I want to be careful to come to it with still the attitude that this is something to be grateful for. And in a sense, if I win, it's found money. I'm playing a game and picking up money for doing nothing but playing a game and having fun. That said, if I can maximize my chances to do well, I'm certainly going to make efforts to do that. Now that I kind of know what this is about.
Cool. Well, if you make it, good luck. Good luck.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Yes, and I'll echo that. If you happen to make the tournament, good luck. And
thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So, any other questions at this point?
I don't have any. I'm sorry to say, someone whose job is professionally to ask questions, I'm without them at the moment.
So this broadcast is
live right now.
It's on right now. Do you see how many people are watching, and then it gets posted to YouTube later, kind of thing?
Yep. Both. It's live right now, and YouTube saves it for posterity as well. So.
All right. I'll tell people to watch it.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining me on #Jeopardy Live panel this evening. Next episode, I'm aiming for next Monday at 9 o'clock, just like this one. So I feel like I'm finally getting back into that Monday routine after a few Wednesdays due to my own, quasi-vacation schedule. So Thank you guys for joining me on tonight's panel, and also thank you to those who tuned in to watch.
Thanks for having me, and good to see you again, Trevor.
Good to see you again, John, and again, good luck. Hopefully in your Jeopardy post regular season career, and I'll be rooting for you. And so thank you both. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks.
So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on #Jeopardy Live Panel. Have a great night.